sweet, fresh meat. Hello and welcome to the Backlot 605 podcast. I am one of your hosts. I am Jason Voorhees. Joined with me this week is my arch nemesis, Freddy Krueger.
Hello. I do not do a very well Robert Englund Freddy Krueger at all.
I think we should have switched our names then.
And I know. Give me the guy that doesn't talk would have been a lot easier.
Yeah. Brian, you have failed me. You couldn't have at least thrown a bitch in there for Freddy or what?
You could have forewarned a guy first. Like, hey, by the way, we're going to start this way. No.
We're starting with impressions because we always do them, Brian. Don't you know this?
No. This is a new thing in your head. You need to, when you have ideas in your head, you need to let them get them out of your head.
I legit didn't know how to start this, so that was the first thing that popped into my head, so that's what I said. Anyway, I am Casey Calderman. Joined with me, as always, is my co-host, Brian Mensing. Brian, how are you today?
I'm doing pretty well here. I'm the closest I can get to being all sorts of horror-esque, with you and your fancy T-shirts is just bringing Freddie and Jason with me in my backdrop.
Yes, I'm a Camp Crystal Lake counselor today because we are talking Freddie versus Jason as we are kicking off Versus Month here at Backlot 605. Why? Because we have this little itty-bitty film called Godzilla vs. Kong coming out here in the month of March. So we're going to be celebrating our greatest versus movies of all time, and we're kicking it off with the greatest versus movie of all time with Freddy versus Jason. And you know what, Brian, we can't do this alone because, if we're going to do a movie about Freddy versus Jason, about a horror movie, why not have a co-host of a horror podcast? He is Sam the Damned Lenz from SlashLot. What's up, Sam?
Oh, just stoked to talk about the clashing of these two titans of horror.
I would just like to point out is that I'm really jealous of your T-shirt, Sam.
Thank you. It is.
I know it's one of those shirts that was like you had to get it when it was available because it's not something that is massively produced, and I'm jealous because I knew about it way too late. I'm like, I would totally own that shirt if I had the opportunity.
Yeah, in 2020, my go-to comfort thing was going to Fright Rags and Cavity Colors and buying a bunch of their shirts as they came out, limited releases and things like that. My T-shirt budget for 2021 now is zero because I went way over it in 2020. So
I don't have a T-shirt budget.
Yeah, I didn't either. Hence it's zero now.
I'm sure the poster behind you either did not help with that beautiful Friday the 13th box set that I'm sure we both watched Freddy versus Jason out of that just came out last year. Incredible box set. But before we get into Freddy versus Jason, we should talk about the head-to-head matchups that we had in the box office for this past weekend.
Look at that segue.
That is quite a segue, isn't it, Brian? You can call me Paul Blart. That's how good my segue was. Number one at the box office, Tom and Jerry.
I just rewatched that movie. It's so good.
The fact that you even used the word rewatch says that why did you put yourself through that more than one?
Because it was on Netflix.
Just because it's on Netflix doesn't mean you watch it.
Yeah, I'm a weak person.
I guess so.
It's easy to get Sam with 17 again and Paul Blart Mall Cop.
Yep.
He's an easy man to please.
It's Netflix earning my subscription.
Number one that might have earned Sam's subscription to HBO Max is Tom and Jerry, $13.71 million. What a hike in the box office here for this week. Big opening weekend for Tom and Jerry.
We finally saw a dethrone of the Croods.
Yeah, the Croods, that, again, I think this is indicative of how the box office might look going forward here throughout the rest of the year, is that the family movies will tend to still do very well. Mm-hmm. I think anything besides that, you might be on the fence on still. Even Wonder Woman 1984 is was on the fence type of thing. I didn't hope maybe with the HBO Max dual release. Maybe
right.
Disney is maybe still going to take the chance of Black Widow. We'll see in here in the next couple of weeks. But Tom and Jerry, impressive $13 million opening weekend.
Yeah, I think this does definitely say a lot for the family releases, like you said. A lot of I see a lot of it is our kids have been cooped up. We're going to take them to the theater and get them out of the house in somewhat of a quote unquote safe environment, because like we've said over and over again, theaters actually seem like the almost the safest place to go right now. And if you're going to get the kids out, go see Tom and Jerry.
Yeah, for sure. I think that, yeah, like you guys said, this is really something that's gonna continue. I mean, we saw it with even like in the high dollar rentals. I feel like the kids' movies are doing better than anything else, because if you a lot of people have kids, and you're not gonna rent. When this first started, you weren't gonna rent The Hunt, which is hard R and all that. You're gonna rent Trolls World Tour, you know. And I just think that essentially the silver lining of this pandemic is I think it's brought families closer together, and because of that, you're seeing family entertainment really succeed in this kind of environment.
Yeah. And I do think it kind of alludes to that same thing that you were saying about like Trolls versus The Hunt, is that like you got someone like myself, like if I'm renting The Hunt for $20, it's not going to pay for me to do that because I'm by myself. Whereas if I were to do Trolls, I've got 2 kids, so technically it's quote unquote 3 people, so I'm getting my money's worth. So I definitely see that the family thing has definitely been the dynamic that's been hoping. This is what's helped boost those family films.
And I think that trend will probably continue as we continue to go forward. I mean, Disney Plus is doing their Raya and the Last Dragon, doing the dual $30 rental on Disney Plus and theatrical. I think this will do much better than Mulan did. I think that just a Disney animated movie will lend itself much better to a PG-13 live action remake of a Disney animated movie. I think it'll definitely lean more towards having a positive box office run and a rental run on Disney Plus. But impressive to see Tom and Jerry, which goddamn, this movie looks terrible, but people wanted to see it.
I will say this because I know Sam hasn't finished it. You haven't watched it. I know I've watched it and Derek has watched it, and both Derek and I kind of have it in the middle of the road. It's a good fun movie. It's going to be a movie you're going to want to take your kids for the sake of the nostalgia of introducing some of your kids to Tom and Jerry who don't know who they are and whatnot. This kind of movie lends itself to what kids are going to expect because they're more of a 3D animation this time around, stuff like that. It's cute. It has its typical Tom and Jerry slapstick and whatnot. Are there phoned in performances? Absolutely.
Yep.
Is Colin Jost being straight out Colin Jost? Absolutely. Rob Delaney is delightful. I enjoyed Rob Delaney in this whatnot, but it's
I saw of it. I liked Michael Pena too. I thought he was pretty funny.
Yeah. It's an easily a middle of the road kind of film and whatnot. If it's something that if your kids want to watch it, it's not going to be horrible to have to try to sit through it.
Yeah. And the only reason I fell asleep halfway through it was because I was tired. It wasn't that I wasn't somewhat invested in it. It was it was kind of fun.
Yeah.
So.
Number 2 this week, Crude's a New Age, just over $1 million, still continuing a good box office run for this movie. The only other movie over $1 million for this past weekend, 2 family PG movies. So both doing very, very well at the box office for both of these movies. Interested to see if Tom and Jerry will continue this run, or if the Crudes will start to slowly find its way out of the box office. I'm really wondering what's going to happen with those, especially with Raya and the Last Dragon coming out pretty soon.
Yeah, I think Cruise has still got a little bit of gas in the tank, even with the fact that it's on digital, it's on Blu-ray and all that stuff. I think there's still a little bit of gas in that tank.
Number 3 is The Little Things, $925,000. This HBO Max dual theatrical streaming release. Still doing pretty well out there. I think the award buzz for this movie is holding it in this box office a little while longer than some of the other movies that have come out before or after this movie, including one that fell out of the box office, or top 5, is Judas and the Black Messiah, unfortunately.
Yeah, which I do agree, which is kind of unfortunate because between the 2 films, Judas and the Black Messiah is the better of the two movies and whatnot.
But you got that star power of Denzel, and I mean,
agreed.
Jared Leto's getting the award buzz for this, so I think that's what's overtaking like Judas and the Black Messiah.
Yeah, and I do kind of have to question and wonder, just simply for the fact that by the time this drops and whatnot, Little Things is going to be off of HBO Max, and because of that award buzz and whatnot, is it going to hover in that 3, 4, 5th range until for at least a few more weeks? I think the award buzz part of it's going to make this thing hover just a little bit longer than what we'd expect it to.
Mm-hmm. Number 4, Wonder Woman 1984, 710,000, still sticking around the top 5. And Liam Neeson taking 37 on a horse, The Marksman, $700,000, top 5 right there. Tom and Jerry, The Croods, The Little Things, Wonder Woman 1984, and The Marksman.
Taken on a horse. I love it.
Taken on a horse.
Taken on a horse.
I still have to see it. I'll watch anything that Liam Neeson's in.
So how many Taken movies does that make that you've watched?
Or variations of
to
that.
10.
Right? Just because there's only Taken 1, 2, 3 doesn't mean there isn't Taken 12, 17, and
right. Taken on a bus, taken on a train, taken on a plane.
Exactly.
Taken on a snowplow.
Taken on a
I
snowplow.
love the Taken on a snowplow movie.
Taken on snowplow. They should just be like Taken, and then whatever the title was supposed to be, just make that the subline.
Yeah.
Blank.
No. I just mean like Taken. Parentheses. Cold Pursuit. Taken. The Commuter.
I'm still waiting for Taken on a Zamboni. That's the movie I want to see.
Only if I get old man, Liam Neeson doing the Zamboni trick from Deadpool, where it's slowly going to take the guy out. Okay, on to the wonderful news that we have here. I think this is going to be brutal for me as we get through part of this news here. First thing is Netflix has dropped Zack Snyder's trailer for Army of the Dead. I have purposely not watched this. I will not watch this. This isn't because I think it's going to be a bad movie. It's because it's one of the Netflix movies that are on my docket of Netflix movies to watch for this year. But I want to go into this movie blind. So you've both watched this trailer, though, haven't you?
Yeah, like I said earlier in this episode, I am weak. I was not going to watch this trailer, and I lasted all of about 2 hours after it dropped.
I was gonna say we talked about it. You're like, I even told you to be strong. Like, come on, you can do it.
Brian, he rewatched Paul Blart on Netflix. Sam,
you know what? I
gave it 3 stars on Letterboxd.
I will say
Sam is a weak guy.
Yeah, as far as this trailer goes, though, it doesn't give away a whole lot of what's going on. I think it gives the basic synopsis of what we're getting. I don't even know.
It's essentially a bunch of it's a hype reel.
It's a heist movie in the zombie apocalypse. Is
Yeah.
basically what this movie is, and I think it gives away some. It gives some good shots in this. I mean, we get to see Zack Snyder's updated zombies in this movie. I like Dave Bautista as the lead of this movie. I think that's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, for
give
sure.
Dave some fun time to have in an action zombie movie. I'm excited for this. I have not seen his Dawn of the Dead remake, which I'm looking forward to watching right before this. So I'll probably just do a Dawn.
Trust me, that look on Sam's face right now is exactly the same look when I heard that you had never seen the remake of Dawn of the Dead.
Listen, guys, remakes suck. Blake has told us this many of times.
Yeah, but Blake hates movies.
Blake hates movies. That's a spinoff coming very soon as we convince said Blake to be a host on Blake Hates Movies. But I mean, Dawn of the Dead is one of the greatest horror movies of all time. So I'm very iffy going into Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead.
It is a very good. It is a good movie.
Romero's Dawn of the Dead is one of the greatest horror movies of all time. Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead is one of the greatest horror remakes of all time.
Sam, you just gave Paul Blart Mall Cop 3 stars.
Yes,
I can't
I'm
trust
aware.
you, Sam.
I'm a man of very specific taste. I like Kevin James and Zack Snyder zombies.
I will tell you, as for somebody who has purposely avoided Paul Blart, I still agree with Sam on Dawn of the Dead remake.
I am more excited to
solid.
watch an old Zack Snyder and a new Zack Snyder zombie movie than I am to watch that Snyder cut. So I would
I'm
much rather watch
excited
these.
for all of those things.
And the fact that I can get the end of Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead with the Richard Cheese version of Down with the Sickness.
Shout out Richard Cheese.
Oh, trust me. Listen to it. You'll understand.
Oh, I love me some Richard Cheese. Richard Cheese rules. Dick Cheese is the man. We're on a first name basis like that. We're that close.
Yeah, just go ahead and watch him in the new Kristen Wiig movie.
Yeah, what? So I don't know. Are we moving on past Army of the Dead now? Go check it out. It'll be on Netflix
it
pretty
looks great.
soon.
One thing, Zack Snyder's actually, I'm pretty sure he's doing the cinematography on this too, and the fact that like every shot in this trailer looks gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very excited to see what he's doing with this. I've always thought that whatever you feel about Zack Snyder, visually he is fantastic.
He's got a beautiful, and I would completely agree with that. Is that for the sake of 300 and Watchmen, Dawn of the Dead. I mean, even Sucker Punch. Sucker Punch is not a good movie, but it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's a gorgeous film. He's got an eye for visuals like no one else.
Yes, really, and that is one thing. Though I may not be a big fan of the DCEU stuff, they're pretty. They are definitely Snyder films. So, all right, on to the next thing. I didn't even know this was even going to be a thing, and that's okay, I guess. Jeepers Creepers Reborn announced with the 2021 release date. I don't think I even saw Jeepers. I've seen the first two. I don't think I've ever even seen the third one here. It's just, the studio attempting to try to make another Jason and Freddie, and and I don't think the Jeepers Creepers franchise ever really hit very well. So maybe this is them trying to correct the footing. I don't know. This does nothing for me.
No. And honestly, like everything, I mean, everybody knows Victor Salva. I know he's not involved in this movie, but just anything that puts this out further, I feel uncomfortable with it, honestly.
Because just for the sake of curiosity, because I know of that whole thing, whatever the case is, but in terms of not being associated with this here, are we talking about characters created by?
Well, essentially, if they were going to make another Jeepers Creepers movie, he would have to be paid for it.
Yeah, but he is not writing, directing, producing.
No,
he's not physically involved with this movie.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying, though, is the fact that he may not be physically involved with making the movie, but his name will still have to be in the credits because it would be characters by.
Yeah,
possibly.
Essentially. I mean,
there's ways you can get around that with the shit that scumbag has done.
Yeah.
If you don't know who he is, he's the writer, director, creator of the Jeepers Creepers series 1, 2, and 3. Not a good guy. Plenty of just do a Wikipedia search on this scumbag.
It's pretty easy. You Google his name, it'll be the first thing that comes up.
And then clear your browser history.
Yeah, exactly.
My thoughts on this are, again, it is hard sometimes to separate art from the artist, but in terms of like the previous ones, I do think 1 and 2 are good movies. Jeepers Creepers 1 and 2, and it's hard. Like I said, it's hard to separate art from the artist, but I'm not going to take away from anyone else who is a good person who worked on any of those other movies, because I think like Justin Long is really good in that first movie. I think he's really good in that. I think the first movie is a really great early 2000s. I mean, we're talking Freddy versus Jason. I think it's the same year as Freddy versus Jason, if I'm not mistaken. I think
you're right.
And I mean, Jeepers Creepers is a better movie than Freddy versus Jason. And I think, unfortunately, the real life aspect of Victor Salva has overshadowed this franchise that was created and this character that I do think could have become a Freddy and Jason style of horror character. It's just unfortunate that we don't have, a Wes Craven instead behind Jeepers Creepers, and we have a scumbag like Victor Salva behind it.
Yeah.
So that's why I want to give this one a new chance, is that, with the title Reborn, maybe we're going back to doing like someone else is creatively taking a new creative step with this franchise. We're going to try to remove Victor Salva's name. I think it was a huge misstep when they did 3 to give that guy just creative control of the movie. I'm like, let this guy anywhere near this. And I think finally now the company now that did 3 and this one now owns the rights to it, and it's their property to have. So at least they're getting rid of him and can hopefully move on in a different direction, because I think as far as like this mythos of the character and the overall look and design and stuff, I think he can be a great horror character. We just gotta, I think the franchise just needs to take a new step past this Victor Salva era.
Maybe this would be the time for the retcon and trying to kind of get it started over. I did look it up really quick here. Freddy versus Jason is the same year as Jeepers Creepers 2. Jeepers Creepers original was 2001, so we were into there. But yeah, I mean, obviously it was 2003 was a year of quote unquote iconic horror villains. I mean, yeah.
I hope it just we can take a good right turn in this franchise, and maybe it'll end up with a different outlook than what we do think of the Jeepers Creepers series right now.
Yep. And because when I was talking about painful news, this wasn't even the painful news that I knew was even going to be brought up, just because I know how you two are, is we got Spider-Man No Way Home title for the December release of Spider-Man 3. And as much as I know that you absolutely both superly love the Spider-Man movies as of right now, You guys have a different take than I do. I completely know and I understand that. And
I'm off the wagon on this one too, but for completely different reasons.
Oh yes, I know you. But I mean, all this basically I think alludes to is the fact that we're talking about the multiverse stuff. It doesn't give anything. The one thing I will say about the trailer this is a trailer I did watch, but that's only because I knew that there was nothing film related whatsoever about it. Basically this just tells us, we know there's multiverse stuff involved. We just don't know anything about the movie yet, which is perfectly fine.
There was a trailer?
Yeah, they did a video reveal of the title.
Oh.
Where it was making fun of Tom Holland because he spoils everything and and I'm like,
well,
darn Tom Holland.
But for
my second favorite Tom Holland in Hollywood, by the way.
I will say the fact that yes, they're poking fun at that, but for the fact that he is known for that kind of stuff, use it. I mean, why not?
You're gonna have all the nerds wet the bed because of that.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, I get where they were going with it and whatnot, because I mean, they're not even like trying to skirt and whatnot, and saying or whatever. In this little 30-second clip, it was basically Zendaya and what's his face? His name
Jacob Batalon or something.
Yeah, but they're basically saying, well, of course he gave you a wrong title. You suck at keeping secrets, So.
And then they walk past a whiteboard and it zooms in and it shows the actual title of it.
Yeah,
with a bunch of other brainstormed ones.
Yeah, I like that. The Casey's like they had a trailer.
Now that you say it's 3 actors who have zero chemistry with each other, I'm like, I don't need to see that behind the scenes thing.
It does feel very stiff. And I will say this, I liked Homecoming for what it was, but I thought I think I liked Homecoming most because of Michael Keaton, to be totally honest.
Yeah.
And I think Jake Gyllenhaal is doing his best in Far From Home. I just think Far From Home is a very poorly written movie that hopes that you care about Spider-Man characters just because they're named after Spider-Man characters.
Or Night Monkey.
Yeah, I'm just the Night Monkey stuff.
Oh my! How unfunny is that?
Everything with Ned just was cringeworthy. I was just like, "What am I watching? This isn't even like." The first one kind of pulled off the John Hughes teen comedy type of stuff, and the second one, it doubled down on it, but made it 10 times worse. And I just couldn't. After that, I was like, I don't care where this franchise goes anymore.
For me, for this franchise, they need to get out of high school as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Let's move on. Let's get past this because this is not working at all. I mean,
Tom Holland handle the blip well at all.
No, Tom Holland has, and literally anything else that has handled the blip, like WandaVision, has done it extremely well. So there are ways to handle that perfectly, like the great TV show that is going on right now. But like Spider-Man and Tom Holland's Spider-Man has great chemistry with all the older characters he interacts with.
Mhm.
Like Michael Keaton's Vulture, Jake. He has the most chemistry with Jake Gyllenhaal in Far
Even
From Home.
fake Uncle Ben Tony Stark.
Yeah, he has great chemistry with Tony Stark and any other Avenger he interacts with. Like, let's get him out of high school and let's just get him with the Avengers and let him hang out with them then, because this stuff isn't. I don't think it's working right now with him in high school, and I think the thing. I feel it's a little bit of they're pulling. I don't know if the multiverse thing was totally in the can for this of what they wanted to do, but I feel like them throwing in, hey, we have Alfred Molina in this, we have Willem Dafoe, we have Kirsten Dunst. You guys need to come check this out. We're throwing in the multiverse. Seems a little bit like, please come back. We know you like the Raimi movies. Please come back.
Well, and the fact is, like, after all of these news things leaked, like where it's like, oh, we're going to have Doc Ock. Oh, we're going to, there was a point where Tom Holland was talking about how they were literally writing the script as they were filming. And that can work. The Mission Impossible movies are evidence of how you can make a movie on the fly, essentially, and pull it off. I don't have faith that these filmmakers can.
The MCU was started by a movie that didn't have a script, so I think it's within the realm of this entire series that can be pulled off.
And I think it is the kind of thing where I think that's something that they put on the table just because of leaked scripts and the multi-year arc that they're doing with multiple movies and whatnot. Like I would get why, because if you have somebody like Tom Holland who has been known to accidentally say things. That's a movie where that's the first person who's not going to get a full script.
Yeah.
Who's going to get a fake script, that sort of thing.
That is fair. That it came from Tom Holland. It's like, well, maybe they did have a whole script and they just weren't giving it to you, buddy.
Well, because if I remember correctly, when they did Endgame, there was scenes that he filmed. He didn't even know he was who his dialogue was even up against.
Yeah.
So I find such weird filmmaking to do that. I don't know.
Yeah.
As far as
in Infinity War, they had everybody film a death scene, and no one knew if their death scene was actually going to get put in the movie. Mm-hmm. Like, that's insane to me.
I think this title is actually pretty good, though, as far as this title goes. I think No Way Home is probably the best thing to throw in here, continuing with the home trend and also throwing in, hey, we're doing a multiverse type of thing, right? Assuming that all the kids will end up in a different reality is what I'm assuming will happen, and they can't find a way home. So maybe Spider-Man will click his heels 3 times and find his way back in his bed.
You literally said the same thing I was thinking.
Like you said, Casey, I'm just ready for Spider-Man. We're not at home anymore because we're off to college or adulthood or whatever comes next, because I can't take this high school stuff anymore. Mm-hmm. It's just, it's bad.
Mm-hmm. Spider-Man, we're not in Kansas anymore.
That's it. That's the title.
Spider-Man, we're not in New York anymore.
Yeah.
That was the last one.
I know. I know. As those words were coming out of my mouth, I was like, we did that movie.
Spider-Man, right. We did that movie.
Spider-Man, Simpsons did it.
Simpsons does everything. All right. Speaking of animated stuff for the television, I'm working with this here. Beavis and Butthead, The Workaholics, and a Pet Sematary prequel to come to Paramount Plus. If anybody doesn't know what Paramount Plus is, that is what CBS All Access will become when it gets relaunched again.
And am I wrong in saying that there was also a new Rugrats movie that was coming to this?
Rugrats. This was one of the other things about Paramount Plus was that CBS, Viacom, Paramount is using Paramount Plus in the same lieu of HBO Max and Disney with Disney Plus, in that Mission Impossible, there's a couple other movies that are going to debut on Paramount Plus 45 days from theatrical release. Right. Paramount did say that they're not going to do the dual release like Warner Brothers HBO has been doing, but expect that if this is when the movie comes out 45 days later, that's when it's going to hit Paramount Plus. So
I think that'll be the new norm for movies going forward.
Yeah.
I think after this year of HBO Max, I think the Warner thing will start to do that, is that they'll get their month and a half run in the box office, and then boom, you're on HBO Max or Paramount Plus or Disney Plus or whatever else, Lionsgate Plus and whatever, A24 Plus, all these pluses that we're getting out there.
Yeah. I mean, all of these movies, save the Pet Sematary prequel, sound fun to me. I really like Workaholics. I like Beavis and Butthead. We can mine from something else from Stephen King. For the love of God, Mary Lambert's Pet Sematary is the end all be all. I will stand by that. I stick that flag in the ground. I claim that. Like, no one's going to improve that movie. Stop trying.
It has 2 Ramon songs in it, so you can't improve it.
Exactly.
Hey, we've 2 weeks in a row we've had news of something that is Stephen King related. We've got Pet Sematary for Paramount Plus. We've got Edgar Wright doing The Running Man. So
Excited for that.
I would like to see. I would love to, for the sake of the Stephen King stuff, is somebody getting in and pulling out some of the old Richard Bachman short stories and making films out of those that have never been touched, like Road Work and The Long Walk. And I think those would be some good fun movies. But I never even saw the John Lithgow remake of Pet Sematary, which is saying something because I have it on digital. I just never got around to watching it. Just, I don't know. I mean, I agree with you, Sam. It's like we've got Pet Sematary. We've got a remake of Pet Sematary. Let's try something new. I mean, I think it's just a matter of Paramount was looking for properties that people know, i.e. Beavis and Butthead, Workaholics, to say, hey, what can we do that we hone, that we don't have to worry about trying to license or acquire and stuff like that? What can we do so that way when we launch Paramount, we have those hooks into the people already, be like, how can I get your dollars? And I think that's the only reason why it's Pet Sematary.
All of these news pieces that have been announced by Paramount Plus are for existing properties that, from what I saw in that, like you said, Rugrats getting a new CG animated movie or series, whichever one it may be. I mean, a new Beavis and Butthead movie. Again, how many times have they tried to reboot Beavis and Butthead?
3 times, twice.
Yeah.
After I heard the Rugrats news about Paramount Plus, I went back and rewatched Rugrats Go Wild, where they meet the wild Thornberries. I love that movie.
It is a great movie.
It's fun.
I'd say, isn't that where Bruce Willis plays
Bruce
the dog?
Willis voices Spike in that, yeah.
But like Workaholics has been off the air for a couple of years already. It's like we're going back to the mine of that. I mean, Pet Sematary, like we said, this is a prequel to the book, one of the movies. I don't know. It's just a property they had, and we're like, what can we do with Pet Sematary? We own it. I'm tentatively excited about all these, but it's like, do I need another streaming service though?
Yeah, that's the thing with me too, is I'm like, if any of these are like exclusives, I'm probably not going to watch it just because I'm not going to get another streaming service.
Yep, exactly.
And none of these are a game changer where I'm like, I need to sign up for Paramount Plus, because for HBO Max, it was like when they announced all of our Warner movies are going to HBO Max, and it's like, that's a game changer. You have to have HBO Max at that point.
Yeah. You mean I can see James Gunn's Suicide Squad as many times as I want in a month? Like, yes, I will be on HBO Max.
Well, and I think of it this way too, is, for the sake of, Judas and the Black Messiah, the little things, even Wonder Woman, wherever the case is, I'd love to go to the theater right now. I'd love to go to the theater and whatnot, but for, now I don't even pay the $15 a month because I got it on promo. So for the $12 I'm paying, I'm seeing these movies I would have paid one-time fee of $12 to go see in the theater. I'm already paying for it, so I'm going to utilize that advantage.
Because there's at least one coming out per month, and so it's like, why? It's essentially like
it's a price of the ticket. Yeah,
exactly.
Why wouldn't you? Plus, I mean, their library is great. I've really enjoyed flipping through. Like, they've got a bunch of franchises. I mean, they don't have the best Elm Street, which sucks, but I mean, like, honestly, I went back and I watched like sitcoms from my not my childhood, but like middle school years that I hadn't seen since they were airing on television. I'm like, oh my God, this is kind of fun. You know, I love HBO Max, and I think they're really doing this streaming theatrical thing well. I think they're doing it better than most.
I completely agree, and that's where I think Paramount's going to falter a little bit because you know, Disney is Disney, so they've got the Mouse House thing going on. Which mad props to Tom and Jerry making that reference in the movie. I'm just saying, but you know,
the Mouse House,
the Mouse House. I think that's copyrighted. But you know, HBO Max has got the backing of it's owned by Warner Brothers. They've got that, whatever the case is. You know, Paramount is Paramount. There's no doubt about that. You know, they've got those big names like Mission Impossible and stuff like that. But I mean, in terms of like the studios that are part of that whole ecosystem here, you've got what? Nickelodeon Films, MTV Films, you know, and Paramount. There really isn't anything that's like, oh, let's grab for that.
Yeah.
I think the Nickelodeon stuff might be a big selling point for them on this service.
That's the one thing.
That would be like Paramount's niched into trying to getting into the Disney Plus market to get the kids.
And that's the thing. I would have rather have seen just a Nickelodeon Plus for like $5 a month type of thing, and then you could have done like a new Rugrats and whatever else you wanted to do on that. I think that would have. Yeah, I don't think every studio needs a streaming service. I think that's going to become a big problem. Is that Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, and I would say HBO Max is finding its way back up into that kind of big four area. It's like you're running out of room to fit everybody else in here because I know like not everybody's going to want to sign up for Paramount Plus and like
now Discovery Plus
and what's the Peacock and all these other services. It's like not every. It's almost like cable is just coming back. You're paying for what you want this time.
Exactly. Well, and like you're getting Netflix. Netflix is going to be fine because they were the first, and they're just synonymous with whatever. And their original programming has now created a fan base of its own.
Right.
You know, you can't get Stranger Things elsewhere. You can't get. I mean, they're moving in on like Oscar territory now, where they've got 2 or 3 movies per year that are up for awards. You've got Disney Plus, and they're a behemoth. They're not gonna get knocked off the pedestal anytime soon. You've got Hulu, which is owned by Disney, which has a bunch of whatever, and then you've got HBO Max, which is all Warner Brothers. They've got the DC. They've got everything. Outside of that, not a lot of these have like something that the general public is going to really latch onto.
Mm-hmm.
The closest thing that Paramount Plus got for me was, oh my God, a new Rugrats movie. But that's just because that's like nostalgic for me. But I'm not gonna pay for another streaming service for one Rugrats movie.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
So, you'll get that 1 week trial and then cancel it so you can watch the movie.
Exactly. Yeah.
And this is CBS All Access is the one transforming into this, right? And they've also canceled. I mean, one of their big selling points of CBS All Access was the Twilight Zone, Jordan Peele's Twilight Zone, which was now canceled. It's like you had those people sign up for that. Now you're dropping that with your new service. It's like you're going to lose some people because you dropped an original show that you had on that streaming service when you transitioned to this new one. I think Paramount Plus will struggle upon its launch, and will be interesting to see how that one goes in its first year or two.
Right.
I sense another streaming service going the way of Quibi.
Quibi 2.
Now, that Quibi was just a bad thing to start off with.
I don't know. I think it was a pretty solid idea, Brian. Can't even
you also rewatched Paul Blart, so we understand that your opinion doesn't matter.
That's fair.
I'm kidding.
That's fair.
You know where Sam's opinion will matter? When we talk about Freddy versus Jason, because that is this week's main topic. But before we get to that, let's give a shout out to our coming soon article on backlot605.com. If you do want to know everything coming out on streaming services to theaters, home video, anything else in between, go check it out. Coming soon on backlot605.com. So I guess we're ready to get into Freddy versus Jason, correct?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right. You know what?
Let's get some icons on.
We're going to throw it off to a special introduction for this. we're going to throw it off to professional wrestling announcer Charlie Ickles to give us a formal introduction to Freddy versus Jason.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Backlot 605. It is now time for your main event of the evening. In this corner, from Crystal Lake, standing at 6'5", weighing 265 pounds, with a record of 157 kills, Jason Voorhees! And his opponent, from Elm Street, standing at 5'8", weighing in at 160 pounds, with a record of 34 kills, the Springwood Slasher, Freddy Krueger!
All right, let's get ready.
Wow. Thank you, Charlie.
That was excellent.
Wow.
Let's get ready to throw down Freddy versus Jason. The battle has begun.
I cannot wait for Kramer versus Kramer.
The two icons of horror going at it. I don't think Kramer versus Kramer will have a kill count on it.
But it should.
Let's hope not.
Wow, that just got dark real fast.
Yeah, that poor kid in that movie.
I actually have no idea what Kramer versus Kramer is. I'm gonna maybe I said that and it was in poor taste. It's on my watch list because I know it's an episode later this month.
I don't know how we're transitioning back into Freddy versus Jason. We're just going to transition.
Yeah, we're not.
This is the crazy series that we have ahead. I guess let's just give it away. We're doing Freddy versus Jason this week. The versus movies are not just head-to-head battles like this week. We are throwing pretty much any title that has a versus in it. Next week we're talking The People versus Larry Flint. Then we're doing Scott Pilgrim versus the World, Kramer versus Kramer, and Alien versus Predator. So we have a great mixture of actual fighting movies and two dramas in there
I'm
as
looking
well.
up what Kramer versus Kramer is so I can know how badly I just screwed up.
It's Marriage Story, but from the 70s.
Oh, that's not too bad then.
With Dustin Hoffman and Meryl Streep. Let's get away from the street monster and get to some actual horror monsters here. Krueger,
Wow.
the street monster, coming to eat your Oscars.
Freddy versus Jason versus the Streep.
Versus the Streep. Let's jump into Freddy versus Jason 2003. We get to see these two icons of horror finally do battle. First set up in the Jason Voorhees Friday the 13th film, Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday, which it was not. This is also the second time in that series that they had final in it, and it neither was actually the final in either series. But we get it.
No.
The setup in that movie, I think we should kind of talk about, is that this has been pitched for a very long time, pretty much since Friday the 13th part 6, 7 is right when they started talking about. I think Freddy was in 4 movies by that point, so they had already had rumblings of they wanted to have these two icons finally cross over. Friday the 13th part 7 was supposed to be Freddy versus Jason, but that's where we get Jason versus Carrie in that movie. Yeah. So he gets to fight another superpowered person in that, but finally in Jason Goes to Hell, the film ends with Jason's mask sitting there, and you see Freddy's glove pop out and pull it down into hell with him. So that is the big thing of like the big setup for this movie, and it took over 10 years for us to actually get this movie off the ground. So yeah,
I mean, it wouldn't have anything to do with the fact that Jason and that entire franchise has been in lawyer court hell for 20 plus years. So, that has nothing to do with it.
Well, that at that point, that wasn't really the big struggle. It was more of how do we get these two together? Because the last two Jason movies were New Line, Jason Goes to Hell, and Jason X. And it was more of how the hell do we make this work? And there were so many different ways they thought of going about Freddy versus Jason, which I do want to touch on some of the alternate options that they had. And some of them were pretty freaking wild. like one was Freddie was a camp counselor at Crystal Lake and molested Jason as a kid. That was one of the stories that they had. I'm like,
yeah, I'm glad we cut that one really early on.
Yeah, I'm glad we didn't have that one. Yeah, another one was that I think they pitched like Freddie was Jason's dad, and that was how the two were connected. And there was just multiple different ways that they could have gone about this. And for me, this is probably the best of both worlds of how you could actually connect Freddie and Jason together. So, yeah, I think maybe we'll start before we get into the actual film. Let's start off with our history with this movie. Do you guys remember the first time watching it? What is your history with the series of both Freddie and Jason?
This was actually my first introduction to both of these characters. This movie.
It's because you're like 12. That's why.
This movie came out when I was in like 6th grade, and it was like the movie to see. Like if you saw Freddy versus Jason, you were like, I don't know. You were somehow a badass or something. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I suppose if you're talking about like 6th grade year and stuff like that, you know, these are two horror icons that you haven't been able to watch. In 6th grade, you probably shouldn't still be watching this, but you know,
well,
it would be one of those things. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't get to see it in the theater like a few people did, but like I had friends who their parents would always rent them whatever they wanted on the weekend, and this was the first slasher movie that I ever watched, and I watched it through the holes of a knitted Afghan, because it terrified me. And we double featured this with Leprechaun Back to the Hood.
Oh my
which
goodness!
I also love that movie.
That's a good double feature.
It is a good double feature. I've been wanting to kind of do that double feature again recently. We should do a theater room night. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I just remember watching this and just being disgusted and terrified. It was gross, but it also had nudity in it. So I was like, this isn't too bad.
It definitely.
I was a 6th grade boy.
And I love the fact that it does play into both the expected tropes of a Friday the 13th movie and a Nightmare on Elm Street film.
Yeah. Well, I know a lot of people are like, oh, it tells their backstory like right away in the movie, and that's stupid. I'm like, that helped me as a 6th grader, because otherwise I would have been lost, because like I'd never seen anything. Like I knew of them, but I didn't know enough about them to. So like that introduction where it's basically like Freddy's telling you his whole story, and then you see Jason's backstory. I'm kind of like, okay, like I get this now, you know. So it was, I don't know. I loved it. It holds a lot of nostalgia for me. I watch it. I watch it at least probably once a year. And this year, in the past year, I think I've watched it actually like 3 times. So
I would say in terms of me, for example, by the time this came out, which I still own it to this day, is I had the Nightmare on Elm Street DVD box set.
Nice.
And I'd watched, and even still to this day, I've watched about half of them and whatnot. But in terms of Jason, it was Jason X and Freddy versus Jason that was my real like introduction into Jason, because I'd watched bits and pieces of Friday the 13th before that and whatnot, but nothing where like I binged here 2, you know, Halloweens ago and whatnot, and got through all of the painfulness that is the Friday the 13th franchise. But I always enjoyed this one here just because they're both the evil villains of a supernatural nature and whatnot, but they take it from 2 totally different ways and whatnot. One who doesn't speak and one who doesn't seem to want to shut up, you know. And I think it's, you know, it was one of those ones. It was one of those things that I think for 2 huge icons, for the sake of how long they've been around, it was only a matter of time that either studios acquired the rights to it, the character, or studios played nice, like like the MCU Spider-Man stuff, where it's 2 studios playing nice in the sandbox to finally get something that is this film.
Yeah, my history is that me and one of my friends, we would go to Walmart, and we did this over a month-long period where we bought like the 4 packs of the Nightmare on Elm Street series, like the 2 4-packs, and we watched all those one weekend. And then the next weekend we went back to Walmart, bought all the Friday the 13th 4-packs and watched all those. And then finally it ended up, Freddy versus Jason was kind of the last one we jumped into. I think kind of the weekend we watched was like we did Freddy versus Jason, New Nightmare, Jason X, and then the 2 remakes were kind of the group of movies we threw in together with those, because those are all kind of the oddballs within the series that you don't need to watch in order with all those. But I've always had a fondness for this movie. I think this is one of the best examples of 2 icons of any franchise teaming up and being put into the exact same world with each other, because it feels very natural that these 2 are both within the same world of each other. And that, like Sam said, with the introduction of Freddy in this movie, I think it is needed, because at this point Freddy hadn't been on screen as Freddy Krueger since 1991, I think, when Freddy's Dead came out, which was, we
would have had the New Nightmare by then.
Not the same Freddy though. That's a very different Freddy Krueger. Like that, this, like you would have to go back to Freddy's Dead to get this one.
Yeah. And even New Nightmare came out in 94, didn't it?
95 maybe? 94? No, 95. It was 94. Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
I was about to say, this didn't come out until 2003. That's almost a decade removed from any kind of Freddy Krueger representation.
Yep.
So.
And since the last time we saw both of these 2 in their wheelhouse of Freddy within the nightmares, Jason at Crystal Lake, we had a certain movie come out in between them that just completely flipped the slasher genre on its head and changed how those series would progress in Wes Craven's Scream. Because I think if Scream did not happen, Freddy versus Jason would have never happened after it. Because the slasher genre was dead by that point in 1996. Even New Nightmare didn't do great, which is, for me, it feels very much like a prequel, a stepping stone for Wes Craven to go from New Nightmare into Scream right after for him. And like I said, the slasher genre was all but dead, and now Scream came out, shot like a complete lightning bolt into the genre. Now everybody wants to do a teenage slasher movie, and we got the countless Scream ripoffs. And let's give a plug. Go check out the SlashLot episode where we talk about the Scream ripoffs, like
Valentine,
Urban Legend. I Know What You Did Last Summer,
Cry Wolf,
and Cry Wolf. So go check, like, all within this era of horror, and now we get to see those icons that were mentioned in like Scream now throwing down here in Freddy versus Jason. And I think this is probably the best case scenario for both getting thrown in here. So I guess let's jump into the plot, I guess, of Freddy versus Jason.
The very loose plot.
It has a loose plot, but Freddy
it has a concept that they just kind of build kill scenes around, and that's the exact type of horror movie I love.
Yeah.
Well, and for the sake of these particular icons that they are, that's pretty much what these movies are.
Yeah.
Is how are we going to kill the kids, and then how are we going to wrap the story around how we're going to kill these kids? Yeah.
And as far as the concept goes, I think it's a pretty great concept of what they set up here. They set up Freddy has lost all his power. He cannot get to any of the kids. And even if he tried to, most of them are on the drug that was introduced in Dream Warriors, Hypnosil, which represses your dreams. So therefore, the reason, or the vessel that Freddy can get into your dreams anyway, is now suppressed because of a drug. And so he is going to basically resurrect Jason Voorhees, bring him back to life, bring him to Elm Street to start killing off the kids in real life, making them fear Freddy once again, so he can finally gain his power, come back into the kids' dreams, kill all of them, and he'll take out Jason too when he needs to.
Right.
That is basically the plot of this movie.
Pretty much
is this, and then a bunch of kill scenes in between.
Right.
Yep. And it's kind of a genius way to do it. Like, you have to give Shannon and Swift, the screenwriters of this movie, who also did the Friday the 13th remake in 2009, which I really love that movie. They know these characters, and they know how to naturally put them together into the same world. I know there's a lot of talk about, like, is this more of a Nightmare or is this more of a Friday movie? To me, it balances both so well.
Well,
I would say
I'd say
Yeah.
that one of the reasons for that is because we start on Elm Street, we end in Crystal Lake.
Yeah.
Like we have a mix of the real world kills while we still have a mix of the nightmare realm that is Freddy's and whatnot. So I do think that I don't think this is one or the other for those films. I think this is a very, very well glued, pieced together way of being able to put these two characters in a film and not make it feel like it's forced.
Yeah.
For me, for the longest time, I have always said this is more of a Nightmare on Elm Street movie because it is definitely Freddy pulling the strings of everything going on. But now watching it this time with that, and always in my mind, of this is a Nightmare on Elm Street movie more than a Friday the 13th, I think that statement is still true, but it is also very much a Friday the 13th movie because if you look at those two series, which one has more plot? The Nightmare on Elm Street movies.
Right.
Which is the case for this movie, where the Nightmare on Elm Street plot is more ever present than the Friday the 13th one, because the Friday the 13th one is literally Jason gets resurrected and kills a bunch of teens and then dies at the end.
Yeah. Jason gets stabby.
That's it. That's the plot of a Friday the 13th movie. So it's like, how do you combine that with a Nightmare on Elm Street dream demon type of story? And I think this does a great job of melding the both of those worlds together. And giving both of them the best of both worlds, because looking at this movie, I mean, Freddy only has one kill in this movie. Jason has a lot.
Yeah.
Right.
Which I think lends towards, like we looked at the stats before we, jumped into this, is Jason has a lot more kills than Freddy Krueger does.
Right. And that's because he's just a killing machine, for lack of a better term. He's not necessarily...
He's a killer to be a killer.
Yeah. He's not really a character, you know what I mean? Like he's an icon, he's a plot mechanism, like that's what he is. And for what it's worth, he serves that purpose very well. Like I think there's a reason that Jason is iconic, and it's because it's that simple.
Right.
Freddy is a little bit more, I want to say nuanced, because I don't think any of these movies are particularly nuanced.
But Freddy's more character driven, though.
Yeah, and he has levels to him.
Yeah, exactly.
Jason has a backstory, but it's not as complex and as a deep dive as what Freddy's is.
Oh yeah, exactly. Jason is like, he drowned in the lake as a kid. Saw his mom get her head cut off, and then now he's
for
coming.
some reason, in a matter of 2 weeks, grew into a full-sized adult, and then started to kill people.
And did he actually drown, or was he alive the whole time?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
A very convoluted simple backstory for Jason, but Freddy's like, well, I was a child murderer. And then I was burned at in my boiler room by these kids' parents. I somehow became a dream demon. Now I invade the kids' dreams and, kill them in their dreams. But they can pull me into the real world as well. And my mom was a nun and raped by 1,000 maniacs.
Yeah.
He's got levels to him, baby. And Alice Cooper was his dad. Can't forget that.
You cannot forget that.
Can't forget the Cooper.
Not the Cooper.
But yeah, that's again two very different backstories, and one that where his films add multiple levels to his backstory. In Freddy's, Jason's is pretty straightforward. Of like, he's just a dude in a hockey mask that kills the teens at this camp.
Right.
And speaking of the teens, man, I think the kids in this movie are at least the best of the Friday the 13th series.
Oh yeah, they're better than any of the Friday the 13th casts, for sure.
I don't know if I wouldn't say the final girl is the best final girl, but as terms of the entire group, I think it's a much better group than the entire Friday the 13th series. Nightmare on Elm Street, I feel, has always had better protagonists as far as horror series go. But I do like all the characters in this are pretty much stereotypes, but y'all, you like most of them.
The only one you don't is Kelly Rowland or whatever.
And
Rowland.
She gets what she had coming to her.
She gets annihilated.
There are times in this movie where it's cringeworthy just as bad as her hair.
Yeah.
I've got your nose.
Oh, yeah.
Which is such a
There's
great
a lot
scene.
of CG in this movie too.
There is.
There are things about the CG that there are things about it that I wish would have been practical effect because it just did not come off very well. And the biggest one would be like, and when there are certain parts in different kills, whatever, where the blood is pooling, the blood, spilling, stuff like that, where you can totally tell it's CGI. It's like, we totally could have easily done this practically. Why did we go with a CGI route with it?
Yeah, especially when it was 2003. I mean,
that was the
graphics
cool thing,
at that
though.
point were not great.
That was the cool thing in 2003, though. The Matrix had just come out a few years beforehand. It was the cool thing to do the CGI. My only problem with the CGI is during Jason's nightmare sequence where he's like thrown like a pinball and it literally has pinball sound effects. I'm like, oh my God, I don't need this.
But
I hate that.
I love that scene. It's like one of my favorites in the whole movie.
That is not a Jason thing, though. That is straight up a Nightmare on Elm Street reference.
That is a straight bad Nightmare on Elm Street movie reference.
Because I'm with Sam on this here. I freaking love that part about it because it is straight up Freddie in the dream world having fun while he's screwing with somebody here. So in that world, he's going to be like, let's play pinball, and
here's my problem with
Plus,
that.
he also hip thrusts Jason into a big tank of whatever. So.
I like Robert Englund's acting in this. I think he's having a frickin' blast as Freddy Krueger in this movie.
This might be the most fun I think he's had in the role, honestly.
Well, and I agree. I think that's what it is. He's at this point right now, they're like, you know what? There's nobody else that can play Freddy Krueger. Go have fun with it. And he's all like, he's literally, quote unquote, taking the gloves off and going, all right, I got this, Yeah. Let's have some fun. Because, the hip thrusting, throwing, oh my God, yes.
I love it.
Yes.
One of my biggest problems with that, though, is that you look at any of the other Nightmare on Elm Street movies, is that he's very creative with those kills. He's never, has magical superpowers in that world. Like, he can just fling his wrists and, they go flying. No one else does that ever in the series. I'm like, why didn't you have some, why didn't you put him in a hockey arena and do something crazy with that and have a Zamboni turn into a giant Freddy Zamboni and try to chase Jason down or something crazy like that. That's what I would have loved to see more of the dream world expanded.
Because Jason doesn't run.
Sequel.
The sequel we'll never get, which we'll talk about. But going back to the kids, I like the kids in this movie. I think when we open up with the kind of the party at the kids' house, and we get introduced to everybody, I think my favorite kill of the movie is right here in the beginning, with the douchey boyfriend that just wants nothing to do with his girlfriend after they've done the hanky panky, and he's like, babe, go take a shower, your breath stinks.
That dude needed to die.
Oh, he did, and probably the best way possible too.
And now watching it, what I know, when I was in sixth grade, this was my first slasher. I had no idea he was being an ass because they were literally setting him up to die, Mm-hmm. Now you watch it and you're like, well, duh, he was going to be the first one to die. Everything out of his mouth makes him sound like an asshole,
Oh, yeah, completely.
And he gets so when he gets folded up into a pretzel inside the bed by Jason Voorhees, it's incredible. I love it.
That shot where is it Catherine Isabel? Is that her name? Yeah, where Catherine Isabel comes out of the bathroom and sees him and screams, and he's just twisted up
in the bed.
I'm just like, oh my God, that shot is just fantastic.
I love her reaction when they run out of the house and the cop just shows up. Is everything all right here? And she shows up with her bloody hands. What the do you think?
Yeah. Oh, she's great. She's so great in everything she does.
Yeah, I think she's that's
probably one of those kind of things where she's offered the role and goes, why would I turn this role down?
Yeah.
Frankly, any of the kids in this movie and whatnot, that would be one of those things that's you're up for a movie, whether it's Freddy, Jason, whatever the case is. I'm not a fan of the Jason and the Friday the 13th movies, but at the same time, too, if someone says, hey, you want to be in this iconic, character movie or whatever, it'd be like, where do I need to show up?
Yeah, exactly.
And also, Catherine Isabel is one of those underrated modern scream queens that we have.
Agreed.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, with like Ginger Snaps and American Mary and See No Evil 2. I think she's great in you know, everything she's is in, and like she totally gets the horror genre too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like she falls perfectly in line with some of our favorite, like Barbara Crampton and who else would you throw in there? Like those 80s that are still kind of in the genre. I mean, like Caroline Williams and some of the big scream queens. Like she's kind of the modern version of that, and I think she's really great in this movie.
Yep.
And I think the rest of the cast is a lot of fun. I do like the best friend character that's in the Institute with Jason Ritter's character.
My second favorite death in this movie.
The best friend?
Yeah. I love that.
That's straight up. That's just for me. Just was classic Nightmare on Elm Street.
Oh yeah,
classic. You know, first movie because it's very reminiscent of a couple of the different kills from the original Nightmare.
Yeah.
The reason that scene with him works so well for me is the brother in the bathtub, Scott Farkas from A Christmas Story.
Right.
I think he is just great in the one scene he's given in this movie. Like, if we're ever to replace, Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger, I'm like, that's the guy right there. Let's just pull him from Freddy versus Jason, his one scene. Let's just make him the new Freddy Krueger if we're going to do it.
Yeah.
Hey, I think
he is fantastic in that.
And he definitely, I think, has the facial structure to pull off to kind of replace, Robert Englund, I think, And honestly, that's not for me, that's not to take away from the remake. I think who they had playing in Freddy Krueger in the remake wasn't anything to do with his performance. I think it had to do everything to do with makeup and story.
Yeah. That's the thing. The Nightmare on Elm Street remake had all the makings to be something really cool. It just didn't capitalize on it. Like, I think Jackie Earle Haley would have been a great Freddy had he been given a good movie to work within.
I agree.
But unfortunately, he just wasn't. So,
yeah.
I don't know what you guys are talking about. The last movie Freddy Krueger appeared in was Freddy versus Jason.
I don't disagree with you, Casey. I don't disagree.
Casey's overgoing here when I retcon anything past 2003.
Yep.
It's like there's only 3 Indiana Jones movies. There's only 4 Die Hard movies. Freddy ended at Freddy versus Jason. I get it.
He did. That's how it happened. And what a way to go out. I mean, this is an incredible movie. Let's keep talking about these kill scenes, because one of my favorite scenes is the corn rave scene that takes place. So basically, right before this, it makes no sense as to why we're going to a rave in a cornfield, at this point in the movie, because
we're in Ohio, we got nothing else better to do.
I mean, that is true, but 2 kids were just brutally murdered, and
Casey,
one of their. Yeah.
Speaking as someone who grew up in a small Iowa town and had classmates die, that was like the first thing everybody wanted to do was like, let's go
to a corn rave.
I mean, not necessarily a corn rave, but like, it was like, hey, let's all go over to so-and-so's house. You know what I mean? It was weird. Like, I totally buy that in the story.
For me, it doesn't make any sense, because looking at how these guys were killed, it was just, no, we got a crazy person who folded someone into a bed and chopped a guy's head off. And
yeah, I guess we didn't have that kind of thing happen.
Yeah.
But.
Also, another great scene is I don't know. I don't care what this kid's name is, but he's sitting on the front porch right after his best friend was just killed.
There's so much teenage angst in this scene.
My best friend just got killed, Dad.
Back off.
Let me drink from my flask, Dad. I love that the dad is just sitting next to him after he wakes up from the dream with his head still on and just falls off. It's like, how long was that sitting there? Why did Jason take all that time to do that? Why was there no blood on him beforehand?
Yeah. Jason was sitting there in the bushes with a little string attached to his nose or something, and he's just waiting for the kid to wake up.
No, what nobody knows is Jason was like, he went to school to, for physics and know how things work and whatnot, and purposely set up the dad so then that way when he woke from the dream, he startled the chair that he was sitting on. That's what makes Dad's head fall off.
Yes, Jason's a really
Jason knows math.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I love that they say this in the movie that kid that gets killed by Jason in that scene is blamed for the murder of his dad and his best friend that was folded in a bed. That is physically impossible for any normal human being that is not Jason Voorhees to fold a human being into a bed like that.
Yeah. And he's being blamed for this, but he's not sitting in a cell. He's sitting on his front porch.
No, he isn't blamed till after this.
Oh,
after
right,
he's murdered. He committed suicide by holding his dad's head and probably getting his own head cut off. It makes zero sense, but you know what? I don't care. I love it anyway.
Hey, they just wanted to make sure no one thought it was Freddy Krueger, okay?
Yeah.
Yep.
You got to keep it on the hush-hush on Fred.
I am going to throw this out there for the sake of the story plot to this is, getting Jason to kill so that everybody thinks that it's Freddy doing it, whatever. So Freddy gets his power back and whatnot. Freddy's kills, had a certain way about them. They weren't just weird bludgeon things like what Jason does. So, why does nobody take, the one cop seriously that like, hey, we think we have a copycat killer? Not because, our kids are just dying. Like that's for me a little bit of the disconnect because like, when Freddy killed people and, they were bludgeoned or dead and whatnot, there's literally claw marks and stuff like that. Not just one straight shot and they're decapitated kind of thing,
Right.
Their kills are distinguishably different.
Listen, the town of Springfield is filled with a bunch of idiotic parents and, doofus police officers because none of them have any idea how to stop this guy who's been around for 30 plus years invading kids' dreams for that entire time. It's like, why are every kid in this neighborhood, why are they not all on this Hypnosil drug? Because it's like, why not just give them this drug then if you're so damn scared of Freddy? And
you can attribute the dumb cops to Wes Craven because that was a director trademark of his. Like legit, any Wes Craven movie you see, the cops are idiots. Dating back to, I think I haven't seen it in such a long time, but I feel like it was either Last House on the Left or The Hills Have Eyes had a scene where the cops are literally just the dumbest people. Like it's played for comedy.
The Last House on the Left has some pretty dumb cops.
That's what it was then, yeah.
Dewey made it through 3 movies. Are you saying that 4 movies? Are you saying Dewey's dumb?
Yeah,
Dewey is pretty stupid.
Dewey wasn't a good cop, that's for sure. He's a great character. He's a bad cop.
You're like Wes Craven. I was like, I got to bring up Dewey. I got to bring up the Arquette.
At one point, Sidney opens the door after being chased by Ghostface. He's holding the mask up in front of his. Like, any cop worth his salt knows you wouldn't do that. Any human being.
Yeah.
Oh. Guys, I love horror movies.
Yes.
No idea.
Let's get the Rave in the cornfield is my favorite portion of this movie. Again, the side characters I do love in this movie. Sam, you appear in this movie, which I find very impressive that you appeared in this movie in 2003, playing the character Freeberg. That's obviously you, right?
Oh yeah, that's 100%.
That's the stoner kid, right?
Yeah, Jason Mewes.
Yeah, not Jason Mewes. The one that
you know that they took his style straight from Kevin Smith. Like he's straight up.
Well, they
100%.
have explicitly said that. There is, I think is it in Crystal Lake Memories that Jason Mewes shows up in the documentary? He's like, wait, I'm not in this movie.
Yeah.
Wow, I need to go back and watch that.
Mm-hmm.
I love his character. He's hilarious.
I love not Jack Black in this movie too. The other redneck party goer. He has some of my favorite lines in this. I love him at the party. He's like, man, this Everclear is kicking my ass. Like just the way he delivers that line. And then Jason shows up. He has great interaction with him too. I'm like, oh, it's so good. That's my favorite scene. Like Jason on fire walking through a cornfield with a flaming machete is maybe the coolest thing that's ever been put on screen.
Yeah. It's it's the best visual representation of Freddy or not of Jason in any Friday movie. I genuinely think it's the coolest shot of Jason in any movie is him going through the cornfield on fire. I love it. And it's not just because I'm a corn-fed Iowa boy.
Oh, you're both from Iowa? No wonder this is going to be weird.
That's why it's one of our favorite scenes.
Yeah.
I would have to say that the cornfield is definitely a great scene. To speak to Jay adjacent is one thing I will certainly give him is the fact that when he gets possessed by Freddie, that he is evil looking.
Yeah, he's great.
The way he can look through the eyebrow, he is creepy as all hell. And I think he does a very good job of being able to flip that switch from going weird stoner to serial killer in 2 scenes.
And I just love how like they're literally breaking into a hospital to find drugs.
And they like, walk right past them and never see them.
And his idea of like, this is what I'm going to do is hole up in like the security room and get high. And then when a Freddy Krueger like worm comes in, yeah, we're going to accept weed smoke from him. Like, yeah, that makes sense. Like this guy, you're right. He's me.
This and
that's
like
that would be me in a horror movie. I'd be like too like scared to actually do anything else. So I'd like hide out and like,
Sam,
you're over there toking up just because you're like, I need to bring the anxiety down.
Yeah, exactly. That would be me.
I know you've been doing your stoner monuments. I think I need a Freeburg stoner monument with him and the Freddy caterpillar smoking a hookah somewhere.
Oh, I got to find a monument that I can do that with.
I will say this is also a Crazy Horse. This would be one of those, like, that scene is a good blend of Freddy, Dream World, weird crap that he comes up with in regards to the caterpillar thing that comes through the thing here, but then straight up bringing in the stoner aspect of any Friday the 13th movie. Like, there's things that I know that have to happen in a Friday the 13th movie. Kids get killed, there's ambiguous nudity, and someone's going to get high. Like,
I don't think it's not ambiguous. It's just straight up nudity.
Well, you're right. But I'm just saying it's the fact that, like, those are the 3 things. So at some point here, the stoner kid had to show up, and the stoner kid had to get killed. And so I think that was the beautiful meld of those 2 worlds coming together was with Jay. I like to call him Jay adjacent because he does look like Jason Mewes.
You know, and I love how evil that scene is. Not just like, yes, the kid looks evil, but it's Freddy using this kid's body. Like, that's it. It's
like why did he never do that before?
It's almost it's kind
I was going to say
to me, it's a kind of a callback to Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge, where he's trying to possess Jesse.
Oh, true.
Like, Jesse like looks at his hand. Oh God, I love that movie.
It's a masterpiece of cinema.
It really is. Those first 3 Nightmare movies are like all 5-star movies for me. I love them. It's the perfect horror trilogy.
I think this entire movie has great callbacks to pretty much all of them. I mean, the opening with Jason is literally him just chasing a topless woman into into the Crystal Lake. You know, again, that's the one thing he's doing. That's his dream too. Technically, we're also in Jason's dream during that point. And that's what he dreams about.
Yeah.
Well, why wouldn't you?
We also get Freddie, dressing up as Mrs. Krueger too, and mimicking her. I think that was a great choice to have that callback too.
Yes.
To have Mrs. Voorhees, not Mrs. Krueger, Mrs. Voorhees, have him dress up like her. And this is where we get to like into the dream realm of Jason, and we get to see his drowning once again. And we get to have Freddie as one of the camp counselors with a blow up doll too, which I think is just hilarious.
It's not my fault she's dead on her feet.
I was saying not a blow up doll, but definitely a dead body.
Yeah. It looks like a blow up doll. But this is also like in this scene where we have the final girl Lori go under because she has figured out that she can pull Freddy out of her dreams. Again, call back to the first Nightmare on Elm Street movie. When she goes under to bring Freddy out, Freddie is scary in this part of this movie. Like, he's been pretty goofy so far, but during this, when he's messing with Jason and when he's chasing, Laurie through her house and in the water, he's pretty scary in this. I think the scariest Freddy Krueger makeup we've ever had is in this, where he, in an incredible shot, jumps out of the water and is like slow motion and then lands, and he looks like the devil in this.
Well, and I was gonna say is that to me is a little bit of a throwback to New Nightmare, being that was a demon, because when he comes out and they redo his makeup and whatnot, he's straight up, like you said, looks like the devil. He's a darker red. He's got that pointed ear thing going on and whatnot. And so that was, him kind of going all demonic. Mm-hmm. And yep. I definitely see that was a throwback to New Nightmare, being that it was, like you said, not the traditional Freddy at the time.
Yeah. Well, I just think too, like I think when they finally start fighting at Camp Crystal Lake, there's less CGI, less, like, they're using real blood packets, when he's stabbing the shit out of Jason, there's like blood actually spurting from his chest. I just love that stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, this might be one of the goriest finales to a horror movie that I've ever seen. There's so much blood here. Like, there's so much blood that just comes from these two guys. Yeah. It's like, if, like, I know they're immortal or whatever, but it's like, if anybody lost that much blood, like, they lose enough blood for like 10 bodies. Mm-hmm. I love it.
I love the ending of this, when we set up into our final battle between the two, where Laurie pulls him out and Freddie realizes, like, oh shit, I'm in the real world and Jason is right behind me. The music,
look of fear on his face.
The music starts picking up, like this heavy rock music. I'm like, yeah, we're getting this ultimate like WWE throwdown between Freddie and Jason here.
And that's it. It really does. Like, this the final battle feels very much like a WWE fight. Mm-hmm. And I think that, like, Ronnie Yu clearly knows horror fans, especially of this time, because I mean, at this time, like, horror and wrestling were there's a lot of cross appeal.
There's a lot of crossover.
And there still is, but like, especially in this time, they were very much like, I'd go over to my friends' houses and like, we'd either be watching horror movies or we'd be watching WWE. And so this movie definitely feels like the combination of this, because it does. It feels like you're watching a wrestling match between two titans. It's awesome.
Have you guys ever seen the press conference of Freddy versus Jason? They do like a full weigh-in for these two and have a press conference. Like, it's an actual like fight between the two.
That's
like
awesome.
Robert's in full makeup. And
is it on the Blu-ray special features?
Ooh, it might.
I'll have to check that out.
It's on YouTube. I've seen it on YouTube otherwise.
On YouTube? Okay.
Yeah. It's pretty awesome. It's a lot of fun, and like, fans are all there in attendance, like cheering on their guy. And that's like, again, that's how I like hope fans are when we get to see Godzilla and Kong duke it out. Is like, we have Godzilla fans and Kong fans cheering for their guy, and we're gonna have the big throwdown between the two. And I think this final climax delivers on that. We both get their kicks in. It makes no sense what they're fighting in that construction area. Why that's at
why is there a construction area at Crystal Lake? Yeah, I have no idea.
At a summer camp.
It makes for a cool scene. Like, it looks like they're building like a resort there. It's like a big building. There's like multiple stories to it. I'm like, where in a camp are you gonna find a building with multiple stories? Mm-hmm. But I love it.
I do like the fact that Freddy is trying to try to topple over Jason and they get stuck going down that ramp.
Yeah.
Like, he's like,
and then him just going, oh no,
man, the torpedoes. Like, Freddy has some great lines in this movie too.
Oh, he does.
I will say that for Robert Englund is that a movie being good or bad, when he gets those one-liners, he definitely does a good job of executing.
Oh yeah,
like that's one thing I love about. That's one thing I love about Freddy Krueger, just in general. If there's two things about Freddy Krueger, it's the kills, and it's just Robert Englund. Like, trying to find somebody to pass that torch is definitely going to always be that hard thing to do once he is, since he no longer dons the glove.
Yeah. And I don't think you're ever going to find someone that's going to match what he did. I think your best bet is just going to be to find someone who makes the character their own, honestly.
Yeah.
Just someone who goes in a different direction, because trying to imitate what he did is just going to fall so flat,
I would agree with that, just because with most of the icons that are synonymous with Freddy Krueger, he's the one with the most character.
Yep.
Like, everybody else is the walking brick house that doesn't say anything for the most part.
Also, all of them have masks besides Freddy Krueger.
Right. Right.
Yeah. I mean, really, like, you think about it, Michael and Jason's a hockey mask. And Michael is kind of just, it's not even really like, he doesn't have a whole lot of facial features. It's just kind of a plain mask.
Mm-hmm.
And
what do you expect for William Shatner?
Yeah. I expect a little bit more of an expression on the face.
But I think for the same thing for Leatherface as well. Leatherface is just a great big brick house with a chainsaw in his hand.
And you think about all the actors that have played all of these characters. There's never one person synonymous with Jason, with Michael, with Leatherface. Candyman is probably and Leprechaun might be the closest exceptions, but they are definitely not as big as Freddy, Jason, Michael, or Leatherface, or Ghostface either.
No, I would say,
and presumably we're actually getting a new Candyman this year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
so that'll be interesting.
I would say, for the sake of reprised roles, the closest that you would get would be Warwick Davis as the Leprechaun.
Yeah,
and which he himself, obviously, by the looks of it, has put up his little leprechaun shoes up onto the wall too. So I mean,
well, because he wasn't the Leprechaun in the newest one, was
the
he?
The last couple of them.
Yeah.
Because the one that was the WWE one was what's his face from the WWE?
Hornswoggle, dude.
Hornswoggle. Yes, I couldn't remember his name.
Yeah, like I just want to finish with this movie, and then we'll kind of jump into like some of the sequel ideas that they did pitch that I do want to touch on. I love at the end of the fight of this movie that both end up using each other's weapons to take each other out. Like it ends up with Freddy's arm gets cut off, and Freddy ends up with the machete after cutting Jason's fingers off. So I love that they both have each other's weapons by the end of this. I just love
this is a true Versus of Titans.
Yeah,
in that respect too.
Like, you could just imagine like kids on the playground, like, what if Freddy had Jason's machete and Jason had the claws? What would happen if they fought like that? Like, that's just this movie, which I love.
Well, and not only, like, he doesn't even just like chop Freddy's arm off. Like, he kind of tears it off, Like,
yeah.
It's like, oh damn, like.
I do love at the end of this, when we see the two final characters sitting on the dock, and you see the machete come across the screen. You're like, oh shit, here comes Jason to finish him off. No, it's Freddy Krueger, and then I love that Jason comes up with Freddy's arm, full arm, and just shoves it through Freddy, and then just falls into the water.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, we still get our final girl moment in this movie too, which I think she has a great final line to Freddy Krueger.
Yeah. Welcome to my world, bitch.
Yeah, lops his head off, and we get one of the greatest endings of all time with Jason walking out of Crystal Lake holding Freddy's head, and Freddy gives a nice wink to the camera.
If Godzilla versus Kong doesn't end the exact same way, I'm gonna riot.
With Godzilla holding Kong's head, and Kong just winks.
Kong has to wink at the camera.
Laughs maniacally as it fades to black.
No. I need to see. I need to see Kong. I need to see Kong with Godzilla's head, and I want to watch Godzilla try to wink at the camera.
Well,
Godzilla
we all know.
Like blows a little smoke ring at the camera.
So let's touch on some of these, like sequel ideas and stuff that has happened after this. I mean, one of the movies we'll talk about is Alien vs. Predator, which can directly be tied to the success of Freddy versus Jason. That's like,
oh yeah.
What can
that was a direct response to this.
Yeah,
absolutely.
What can we throw at each other that'll be Freddy versus Jason type? And we have the Alien series and Predator. Let's combine them together. I also think there was some other pitches out there that one of the closest ones that was bound to happen. Two characters that we talked about. Candyman was supposed to take on Leprechaun at one point. Was a pitch out there.
I would watch that.
I would have watched the crap out of that. I would have loved it too, I'm sure. There was also ideas for sequels for this movie, multiple sequels for this movie. I think the one that was maybe closest to happening was pitched during the writing process of this movie, was that, the ending would be, they both fall into Crystal Lake, and like the fade to black scene would be both of them getting, dragged into hell, and Pinhead showing up, like saying, "Gentlemen, why are we fighting? I have such sights to show you." So you pitch Pinhead versus Freddy versus Jason.
I would do that. Wasn't there a comic that was like Freddy versus Jason versus Ash?
Yep. And that was the one that actually came to fruition of actually being something that was published, where there was multiple comic book series of Freddy versus Jason versus Ash, which are pretty incredible.
Do you have them?
I do have them.
Which only alludes to the fact that
I have to check them out.
Which that comic alludes to the fact that everybody keeps talking about that Jason is a Deadite.
Which he is.
Because that's canon even in the movies, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It took a few movies to make that canon, but yes.
It's in the worst Friday the 13th movie, but yeah.
It makes sense.
Right.
In context of all the other crazy shit that happens in Friday the 13th.
Right.
It's like, Jason's mom read from the Book of the Dead, and Jason's a Deadite.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Makes sense. That was the closest one to happen, and one that fans have been pitching. I don't know if this was ever actually a concept thrown out to the studios at all, was Freddy versus Jason versus Michael, which I think was just a fan thing, just because those are the big three.
Right.
And I would love that, though, especially, hear me out, if they brought back the Cult of Thorn for this. Like, I don't know.
Like Freddy was a part of the Cult of Thorn.
Well, maybe not that.
He takes his glove off and he has the tattoo.
It's all burnt up, but he's got it.
He's got it.
His dad was Alice Cooper was part of the cult.
I just think like having the Cult of Thorn pulling the strings on, because in this one it's like Freddy pulling the strings on Jason. Well, what if it was the Cult of Thorn pulling the strings on all three of them? I don't know. I just think that would be dope.
Yeah, I'm all for more Cult of Thorn stuff.
they
Halloween
were
6
the worst,
rules.
They were the worst of the Halloween movies, but even the worst of the Halloween movies were still fucking great. So, freaking great. I can't swear on this.
He used our one F-bomb.
Yeah, you used the one, and you used it wrong because the worst of the Halloween series is the Rob Zombie movies, obviously.
Oh yeah, I don't even count those.
So, I guess we'll wrap this thing up here. Give our final thoughts, Freddy versus Jason, and then also let's throw out there, what is your dream double feature with Freddy versus Jason? So, I guess I can start then. I love this movie. This is one of my comfort horror movies. Like Sam said, he watches it at least once a year. I do the same. I love watching this movie. I always like to just throw it on in the background. I've seen it a million times. I love seeing these two titans just throw down. I think this movie is just an absolute blast, and I would love to see more of the Freddy versus Jason world expanded. If we ever are to get some sequels to either series, whatever happens with them, I'd love to see them mention that Freddy fought Jason at one point. But yeah, I love this movie, and if I'm gonna do a versus battle, man, or throw up another double feature with Freddy versus Jason, I mean, it's hard not to just do Jason Goes to Hell because it ties directly into this too, but I'm gonna actually go with the Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors as the first one to watch, and then watch this one because of all the connections to what's the institute that they're in, Weston Hills?
Yeah, Weston Hills.
Is that what it is? Because that's what
it's
they're
Weston something.
At in Nightmare on Elm Street 3, that's where all the kids are at, and they're taking Hypnosil in that movie as well. So direct connections there. So that would be my pitch. Dream Warriors, Freddy versus Jason.
Nice.
I don't know if I'd have a double feature for this, because this basically is its own double feature of these two characters coming into one film and whatnot. So I honestly, I don't know if I could, off the top of my head, pick something that would go along with this here.
Yeah, I love this movie. It's a lot. It's very nostalgic. To me, yeah, it's one of those that I pop in every once in a while, and I enjoy watching it. It's dumb, it's big, it's loud, and it's just exactly the type of horror movie that I love to just turn my brain off with.
Mm-hmm.
Double feature. I would want to watch this with Leprechaun Back to the Hood, but not behind an Afghan. But also I think that this pairs really well with Ronnie Yu's other feature that I really enjoy, Bride of Chucky. I think tonally they're very similar.
Yeah.
They've got the same, like, new metal, like grungy. I don't know. I love that style.
I will say that is a good through line, just because not even for director wise, but we have father son Ritters.
Yeah. Oh, films. Yeah. Yeah.
Which I did look like while we were talking, because I was bringing that up, whatnot, is Jason Ritter's foray into this here was the same year his dad passed away.
Was it really?
So wow. It would have been just before this movie came out, just before his dad passed away. So at least his dad would have been able to get to see him kind of work in the same realm of what he did with Bride of Chucky.
Yeah, that's cool. That's really cool. Yeah. I think I would double feature this with Bride of Chucky.
I think that's a good answer.
That I just love. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. They're very tonally similar, and they scratch that itch for me. Both of them are pretty nostalgic, and I dig it. So.
Yeah, that's a good double feature right there. Yeah, I think that's a great pairing of the two. And again, shows where those classic horror franchises were in the early 2000s, where it was just very different from where they started. And I think it is funny that Ronnie Yu was the guy that brought a new spin onto Chucky and Freddie and Jason. That's pretty impressive.
Now, if you got all three of those in the same film.
You mean all four of them, because you got to bring in Jennifer Tilly.
Yeah.
Touche, salesman. Touche.
I just want to see Freddie and Chucky just shit talk each other for 2 hours.
Dude, why not? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
That would be a great.
I would 100% watch that.
Screw bringing in Pinhead. Bring in Chucky.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what are you guys' thoughts out there? Do you guys like Freddy versus Jason? What are your thoughts on these two titans of horror throwing down back in 2003? Would you like to see more of these two titans going at each other, or who else would you like to see go up against? And let us know in the comment section. So we're going to kind of wrap this thing up here. What we have going on next week? Next week we are talking The People versus Larry Flint. Very different movie than Freddy versus Jason. Continuing versus month, so why not throw out the 1996 drama, The People versus Larry Flint. But if you do like this podcast and anything else that we are doing, check us out on Apple, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, Amazon Music, and on YouTube. And if you could give us a subscribe and a comment on those, we would really appreciate it. We'd love to hear your thoughts on all of those. And if you have not yet or don't know what it is, we do have a Patreon, which is basically you can sign up for our Patreon, $1, $3, and $5 a month tiers. $1, you get the early access to the show each and every week and some bonus content on there as well. $3, you get voting power and early access to the show. And $5 tiers, you get our bonus episodes each and every month, and we will have a versus bonus episode for this month. So if you want to check that out, check it out on patreon.com/backlot605. We do have our Patreon bonus episode for our Spike Lee series from last month, which was He Got Game. So go check it out on patreon.com/backlot605.
That one was a good talk. Just saying.
It was.
In terms of social media, check us out. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram are all at Backlot605. On Facebook, we also have the South Dakota Film Community Group. Join the conversation. We like to throw things out there just to see what sticks and join in on having fun with the conversation about film and everything going on.
Absolutely. And Sam, I'm going to give you the plug for this. Sam, do you have anything to plug? Maybe a podcast you're on? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm on a podcast called SlashLot with Casey, actually, and our co-host Blake. We talk horror movies like this all the time. We have one episode a month, and it is fantastic. You should definitely check that out. You can follow me on Instagram at SlensArt. Recently, I've been drawing a lot of Muppets, but most of the time I draw gory horror stuff. So,
or stoner stuff.
Yeah, that too. I don't pigeonhole myself, but yeah.
Hey, and Sam has done an awesome job giving us some artwork each and every week for each episode that we do on the show. Awesome work on the Spike Lee series. I've seen the Freddy vs. Jason one, which may be the best thing you've ever done. I think it's just incredible, and I need it on a T-shirt ASAP.
Go to our
I'll get to work on that.
Yeah. So thank you all for watching, listening, whatever it is you are doing. Freddy vs. Jason, I think, is streaming pretty much anywhere. I think it's on HBO Max, if I'm not mistaken. I might be mistaken, but yeah, go check it out there.
And here, I just watched my own digital copy of it.
I've been struggling with digital
HBO
stuff.
Max, but you should have a Blu-ray of it anyways.
I do have this on Blu-ray. I do.
Or 3 copies of it because you own the Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, and the 2-pack, or what 3-pack Blu-ray that this is on.
My Blu-ray is that 3-pack. Yep.
Yeah. So go check it out if you haven't watched Freddy vs. Jason in a while. But Sam, thank you again for joining us on this show. Can't wait to do
Thanks
another SlashLot episode with you. That will also be tied into Versus Month too.
It will. I'm excited. I've got a good idea for this one.
I think that'll be a lot of fun. But for Brian Mensing, I'm Casey Calderman. We'll check you all out next time on the Backlot of South Dakota.